so excited to have you on here. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And I've always looked up to you. And ever since we were doing tarot readings side by side at the psychic fair, and you had a line like out the door of people the whole entire day. Everybody couldn't wait to get a reading from you. So I've just been an admirer of yours and learned so much from you and your intuition classes. And I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Misty. It's an honor, truly. I'm so excited when I get to be a part of other people's, journeys and, some of the amazing things that they're doing to try and reach out to the collective. And the feeling is mutual. You beautiful empath.
So I wanted you on here today to talk about spiritual awakenings, because when you described one, I think it was in Goddess Circle, and you described one, and I was like, okay, that's what the hell happened to me like about 4 years ago. Like that, I now have a name to put to the experience. Yeah. And so I was hoping you could go ahead and describe that.
Yeah. So, hope I can still do it justice. I mean, half the time I don't even know how I've said it or what. I feel like the descriptors and everything tend to shift and change, which is sort of how we want it to be, right? We don't want to be, in this static place where things sort of just stay the same, where our definitions of things and our experiences stay the same. We want it to change, and we want things to be new and not recycle through old things. So today I would describe a spiritual awakening as a deep connection that you realize that there's more than what's happening right in front of you. That there is not just this external world that is happening to you. It is now something that it's this state of observation of not just what is right here, but what's happening in here, and how much you've either sort of put this part aside or you haven't really paid much attention to what's happening in here, but now you're paying attention. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, and it looks different for everybody else. Sometimes it's this euphoric experience of, feeling like, I now understand this presence known as God. Or it could be like, I have so much trauma that I haven't dealt with. Oh my God, and that sort of thing. So it's a spectrum really for everybody. And everybody experiences spiritual awakening pretty differently. I mean, it has its own unique circumstances for each person, because everybody has their own unique circumstances, their own story, their own culture, they have their tribe, they have how things have happened in their life. So accordingly, so does your spiritual awakening. And so, for most people, I find that it is a state of observation that is not just binary anymore. It's no longer just this world and how it's affecting me. It's now who I am in this world and how I affect it, and how my choices and who I am in this life causes a ripple effect. And how can I be the best version of myself in this life and know that I have a choice in the matter. And the external influences are also my choice in how I react. And how I respond, really. I think reaction and response are two very different things. And you also learn in your awakening process how you are in relationship with that too. Is like, how do you get out of the emotional reaction and move into the wise and empathetic response? So that way we're not just saying whatever we need to say to keep ourselves safe because we feel attacked, or however we react in circumstances, but instead hear the possible scenarios that might be occurring. And there's an obvious thing that I'm thinking of here, because there's lots of people that will talk to me, and it's, there's a lot of fervor and passion behind some of their frustration and anger, because they have a story behind this. There's a reason why they're reacting this way, but you're not in that space of reaction anymore, or at least you're trying not to. You're trying to be in a space of empathy and say, okay, so there's a story behind this, and I'm not going to put my anger in the seat of this first. I'm going to put myself in a space of compassionate response. So I think the short answer to this is it's really just a way for you to understand that you're not alone in this lifetime, and that the world isn't happening to you, but really it's figuring out that there's more to you than just this body in this physical world. There's so much more happening, and now you're aware of it. So, yeah.
So I thought my spiritual awakening happened like 4 years ago, but in reality, it only happened like about a year ago, because like everything fell apart about, 4 years ago, but I didn't really start seeing myself in it. Like you were saying, how I'm responding to it, and how I'm not alone in the universe, and that life is not happening to me, it's happening for me. That all of that realization didn't happen until like pretty recent.
Yeah.
So I guess my spiritual awakening is pretty recent, whereas it began several years back.
Yeah. And that's pretty common. A lot of people experience that, and like I was saying to you in one of the classes, it's sort of that getting that tower card circumstances. A lot of people that have those spiritual awakenings, everything just falls apart, and they're left wondering, what did I do? How come nothing is working? How come everyone is leaving me, betraying me? I'm losing my job. I'm losing where I live. My kids hate, like everything just seems to fall apart. And a lot of times, because we're still looking at this as the external circumstances, we're looking at this as the world is doing this to me. But really what is happening is it's like the universe is trying to get us to shift our observation to these things that are in your life. Not saying that your children aren't like necessary. It's not that. I'm just saying how we need to shift away from reliance and codependency on these external things that we think make up who we are, and learn how to disconnect. And I know that sounds really aloof and cold, but at the same time, if we don't have this severing in a way, we can't really connect in a way that's meaningful either. So it's sort of like we're allowing ourselves to not rely on these external things. And so what happens is when they start to pull away because they're no longer necessary for your growth, we begin to grieve and to fight against it. And that in turn causes this resistance within ourselves, and this observation of the world being cold and cruel to us. But we're not seeing what the circumstances are, which is these things are no longer going to help you anymore. Like you can't learn anything new from this thing or this job or this relationship. It's only doing the same thing that you're used to, and it's not helping you anymore. But we don't want to look at that because this is what we're used to. This is the thing that makes us comfortable. But the one thing that we learn very quickly whenever we have a spiritual awakening is that it's not meant to be comfortable. It's never meant to be comfortable. It is supposed to make you feel like, holy crap, like I do, like I can't tell you how many times, like especially with where my mindset was before I had my own spiritual awakening to where I am now. It's like I am no longer in this space of I'm right all the time, because I realize how incorrect I can be a lot. And instead of reacting and just saying, I am now listening and observing and taking time to really introspect where I am and and how I'm responding to other people, and figure out where my trauma is and how that can get in the way of, connecting with those people and understand where they're coming from. So really, when things are falling apart, it's not a message to you to realize that you're doing something wrong. it's a invitation for you to look at where space is being created, where things that are supposed to be in your purview and your life and in your tribe, that is going to offer you the support and love that is necessary for your growth and your development.
Mm.
And that's hard for people to look at. That's hard for anybody to go through. It sucks. But allowing yourself the time to, first of all, grieve, because a lot of times people compartmentalize the pain of when things change, and they say, I'll deal with it later. You know, and men are particularly good at this. And because there's a lot of stigma around emotions and masculinity, you know, they've been told, most men have been told from the time that they're very young, that they are not allowed to cry and express emotions other than rage and happiness. And there's a lot of men now that are coming to realize that they don't have to behave that way and still be masculine. In fact, it takes a tremendous amount more courage and bravery to be vulnerable than it does to be, you know, overtly masculine and not experience their emotions through tough circumstances, to allow themselves to heal and to, you know, express those emotions in a healthy way so that they can experience life with more compassion and love, and you know, be that strength that they, you know, want to be, right? They want to express anyway. But yeah, it's that those circumstances of losing everything, I would say the most important thing for you to do is to feel it, and then to also let it go. Because a lot of times people don't want to let it go. And once you do, you start to realize where things that are important, that are supposed to be there to help you move forward, they start to come into the picture. And then you go, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. Okay.
But it's hard to let it go. Like you said, you have to let go of the things that used to serve you that don't serve you in the future. And that it's uncomfortable, it's painful. Yes, all the things. What tools do you suggest to somebody who's like in the middle of the process?
It's a great question. So that's going to be different for everybody, right? Because we all need very specific things. But I find that a pretty good medium for everybody is allowing yourself the space to express whatever emotions that you're feeling. And people utilize many different things. For me, I'm a very artistic person. I enjoy, you know, music. I enjoy sketching. I especially enjoy writing. Writing is a very easy medium for me to connect to. So writing poems, writing letters, writing like even storylines. Storylines are very easy, you know, because I'm a Pisces. So I'm constantly in my imagination, in my dream state, and I'm always wanting to see it come into reality, right? And so writing that out, even just in like a story form, is very helpful for me, because it's like I'm seeing these emotions work, and they're able to come to fruition on the page. And you know, I can do whatever I want with it. I can let it go. I can read it later and be proud of the, you know, of the work that I've done with those emotions. But that's not for everybody. So one thing that I would invite people to do is to sit and allow yourself to ask those questions. What do I need to do with this emotion that I'm experiencing? If I'm in pain, if I need to express myself, how can you do it in a way that is very healthy, that isn't going to hurt yourself or somebody else? And don't Band-Aid over it with substances, because that's not going to help. I can't tell you how many times, like my husband and I, the one thing we would do is we would just have a drink. We'd drink alcohol, because that was very easy. It's a super easy Band-Aid. And then nothing really got resolved. It just sort of got left on the shelf for, you know, you to deal with later, which is essentially what substances do. And that it's not all just like alcohol or drugs. It's also food. You know, people will eat or exercise even, because it does the same type of thing, although it's a different hormone. There's one that has you a serotonin release, one has a dopamine release. Either way, you're experiencing those happiness hormones, but you're still not dealing with the issue. You're not actually moving through the emotions, because we don't want to experience pain. Our brain doesn't want to experience pain and suffering, but those are the things that are going to help you heal. Nobody wants to cry, but sometimes you just need to. And meditating is a great way for you to get those questions that you have answered. Sorry, we have some landscapers next door. It is what it is, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But meditation, however that needs to happen, some people need to move their bodies, some people need to sit in the quiet and the stillness. A lot of times I find that doing yoga can be very helpful while you're trying to work through some of that pain, because yoga is very much entrenched in that energy movement. And so it's like, as you're moving your body, you may experience those emotions. You may experience like, why am I getting so upset? Like, why am I crying? What is happening? But your body is in turn allowing those emotional responses to finally come to the surface. And then you feel so much better afterwards because you allowed yourself the time necessary. But, having those moments, those quiet moments to discover what's going to work for you, what is going to be the thing that's going to work for you, is going to be the most necessary. Because writing might not be the thing for you, but maybe going for a run, or maybe doing some sort of like sketching or music, or maybe it doesn't have to do with art at all. Maybe it's fishing, maybe it's talking to a friend. Either way, as long as it's healthy, as long as it's doing something for you that's healing, I feel like that's the thing that needs to be discovered. And it's through that process that you learn how to cope better, and you learn how to become a more whole individual. So I think the biggest thing is to learn how to observe what you need in the moment, and not band-aid over it with things that are just going to make you happy, because those are always going to be there. And a lot of times we don't need to utilize those things to try and deal with what's going on. No judgment. It's just, if you're really trying to do the work, continuing to do those things is just going to prolong the inevitable.
I wanted to ask you that when you experienced one, how did it change you? But you already mentioned how the need to prove yourself right changed with your spiritual awakening. Did you experience other changes?
Say that again. Sorry.
Did you experience any other changes?
Oh gosh, so many. So I have a really hard time with abandonment. Mostly because, I felt, so, having circumstances with my parents, especially my dad, that was really tough for me growing up, because I felt like, oh, this is just how men behave, and that isn't necessarily the truth, and then also having other experiences with older men and the objectivity, and then also not feeling safe in my body, learning how to overcome that was especially powerful for me, and learning how to be feeling safe in my own sexuality was a huge learning experience for me. It's still something that's ongoing. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm healed, because I don't think that should be in our vernacular. You know what I mean? Like, we are not just healed, we're done. It's a process. It's always there. All those circumstances, those things that have happened to you, they're always there, but like scar tissue. But they're not meant to be painful all the time either. Just like if you think of scar tissue, you no longer feel the pain of what happened, but you remember, and memories don't have to be a hell that you experienced over and over and over again, but they're lessons that are learned in them. You're no longer going to do this thing that caused you harm. And that goes with emotional circumstances, those emotional scars. So for me, I'm no longer going to, well, a lot of things that have happened to us, like, when I was young, I experienced those circumstances, and, I have that scar tissue now, but I also know that I don't have to carry that pain with me anymore. And I can say to those people, I'm not angry. I don't know that there are things that have happened to you that have caused this. And, I don't know what they are, but I'm no longer going to feel scared or be a victim to those circumstances or to what you did at the same time. And just learning that process was tremendous for me, because then I could actually understand what forgiveness is. Because a lot of times in the church, for me, I was in the church when I was like a teenager, because that was a way for me to kind of experience tribe and safety. And it was great at the time. You know what I mean? I think it's just, you kind of learn what dogma is and how controlling it is, and how, you know, you learn how to, I feel like dogma, it sort of keeps you under the semblance of control that is not very helpful for growth. But a lot of times people are looking for that family, and that's where I was. And I think for me, learning how to feel safe without this external family around was very, very helpful for me, and without those rules that are set apart with dogma, right? For me, and then learning again after I separated from the church, where opinions of the collective can be also a type of dogma. And so you have to learn how to take the opinions of others, and also learn that there's a story here, and it is not mine. And even though what their circumstances are valid for them, they aren't necessarily for me. And I think that helps me to not be so reactionary with opinions, because I think a lot of people fall victim to opinion and make it fact. And that can be really challenging, because it's a fact for them, but not necessarily for you. And so that can be really, really tough, because although their situation is valid from what they went through, it doesn't necessarily mean that, that's true for you or whatever. So anyway, learning to differentiate with that was really powerful, because then you're empowering yourself to understand where your opinions are, what's true for you and what's true for others. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to kind of stand on your own 2 feet a little bit easier. So for me, it was those things, my understanding how I can be on my own and feel empowered in that process, and not constantly feel like people are leaving me or I'm being left. Abandonment is a wound that is very nagging, because, a lot of times it feels like, who's going to leave me now? Who's going to check out? And I think for me, it's allowing myself to let go and not feel afraid of that, because whoever is supposed to be in my life will be there, and whoever is not, I'll be grateful for the time that I got, and that the lessons that I've learned from that individual, and move along. It's not that easy either, but those are my big ones. Those are learning how to differentiate what is true for me, and how I differentiate from opinions and religious dogma, and how there are things that are true for me that are not true for other people, and how I can feel comfortable in that space, and learning how to deal with my own abandonment. Those are big. Also the sexuality, feeling safe in my sexuality. That's a constant, that's a constant thing.
You have transformed your experiences into so many beautiful things. Like you have your novel, which I just bought, by the way. I didn't even know about your novel.
Hey!
But you also create this tribe with the intuition classes, with the Goddess Circle. You create that tribe that you said that you were searching for with the church. And I feel like you've created this beautiful space where it's free from judgment and just validating and comforting. And I really want to thank you for that. I really do appreciate all the work that you do.
You are so welcome, my darling.
So much good information about spiritual awakenings. I mean, I feel like I've got it in perspective, and I need to utilize my tools more on how to transform it for myself, how to transform it into something that can connect to other people. That's kind of what I'm doing here, kind of what the podcast is for. And you have an amazing podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, you talk about crystals, and you talk about the quote of the week, and you do like a little spiritual message. And I really like Third Eye with Lorelei, the podcast.
Thank you.
What my podcast wants to be when it grows up.
Why, thank you.
Yes. So where else can people find you?
Oh gosh. Well, I have a website, and I've definitely gone through some changes with that because I wanted to incorporate my website with sort of like my main contact, but it's a www.3RDEYEWITHLORELEI, Third Eye with Lorelei. Just don't spell out third. You're not going to find me. It's the 3RD I with Lorelei. And that's where the bulk of what I'm going to be doing is going to live. You can RSVP for the classes that you mentioned. So, I like to do the intuitive and psychic development classes. I'm thinking about changing to just spiritual development, just because that's a little easier to say. And then those are free. Usually one Sunday a month. And then I usually do a makeup class in between that time. And it's usually like during the week. And I've been trying to make it in the afternoon so more people can be involved that aren't available in the morning. And then we have the Goddess Circle. And that has been something that's really close to my heart too, because it's more of a focus on the divine feminine and understanding what feminine energy is and how we can utilize it in our spiritual practice. Because in this day and age, we all lean very heavily in the yang space, which is this doing energy. And the doing energy feels really good in our body, but it's unsustainable because we need to rest. We need that time to rebuild, to transform, to alchemize some of that energy and to restore ourselves. And that is where our yin space is, the dark energy, the cold space, the creation energy. It is that void where the Big Bang can be created. And without that, you're burning at both ends, and you can't, it just becomes completely unsustainable after a time. So we learn in the Goddess Circle how to connect with our own inner yin space, our goddess space, the ones that are our quiet intuition that is telling us, hey, how about instead of doing all of that, we take some time for ourselves, and we oftentimes push that aside. So it's in that class, we learn how to connect with that space. And my partner, Rachna, for that class, she is incredible. She's an incredible spiritual life coach. And she also is amazing with meditation and breath work. And she is just a wealth of information. And I've been totally blessed and amazed and blown away by how much growth she has in the couple years that we've known each other and are working together. And I think our passion and desire is to help women and men connect with that energy and learn how to find the balance so that we're not just burning out, constantly. So
absolutely. And I love that these classes are virtual and easily accessible, and you're so amazing. And I want to thank you so much for being on here and for talking with me. And I want to have you on again and talk about topics.
Yes, please. There's so many things. Oh my God. That's the one thing that really excited me about creating a podcast, is that, especially a metaphysical or spiritual podcast, there is endless amounts of things. We can talk about energy work and cord cutting, but we can also talk about aliens and ghosts and all the things, tools of divination. We can talk about philosophy. I mean, the list goes on.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I love you, and I will see you soon.
Misty, thank you again. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.